This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
One more quick segment with former U.S. Attorney Andy Luger, kind enough to join us in studio on a very busy Friday for him as well. You're all dressed up, so you must have someplace big to go. Is that?
Well, I came from work.
Oh, you did come. I forgot you do work. Again.
I'm the last guy in downtown Minneapolis who wears a suit and tie to work.
You're probably right. And you work on a Friday?
Yeah,
it's impressive. That too is
sometimes I unbutton.
You feel lonely in there? There's not very many others around.
There are people in the office at our firm, but walking around the Skyway, the number of ties that you see.
Right.
Yeah. Here's a clue: go short on ties because it's
not going anywhere. Yeah. This is an interesting point. We were talking about electability, and Maury Amsterdam guy writes, it's not that Luger couldn't get elected. It's he couldn't get his party's nomination. He'd have to run as an independent. And we hear this all the time. Not just about you, but other people, that is part of what is enabling and inspiring the two extremes, left and right, is that you can't get, if you could just get somebody nominated, you'd be fine, but you can't get past the nominating process if the people on the fringes are running that or in charge. What do you think?
I mean, I understand, and people say that. I don't really buy that, and that's not why I'm not running as double negative. I don't look. There are moderates getting elected all the time, and there are moderate caucuses. I mean, there's plenty of moderates out there. It's a question of getting your voice heard and getting your policies in place. Look, the Republicans nominated John McCain, George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, not right wingers in the sense that we know.
Well, that's not what we heard at the time.
I understand that, but for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I don't buy that. So sorry.
Let me get to
good. Text it in.
I thought it was an interesting observation.
Yeah.
Some of them I'm not going to read to you because, like I said, your head would swell, but some of them I will before we're done. This is out of alphanews.org, which in itself for some people it's kind of controversial, but I want to read a story there written by Liz Collin. Assassination suspect Vance Belter wrote a letter in which he blamed Minnesota Governor Tim Walz for the murderous rampage that Bolter committed, according to sources. Multiple sources with direct knowledge of the investigation have confirmed to Alpha News that Belter's so-called confession letter was intended for Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. This was the handwritten letter discovered by law enforcement inside the Buick that Bolter purchased just hours after he shot, of course, Senator John Huffman and his wife Yvette, and then shot and killed the Speaker, Melissa Hortman, Speaker Emerita, and her husband, Mark. Any reaction to that?
I only know the portion of the letter that was in the federal complaint that said, he said, I'm the one you're looking for. I'm the one who shot the folks I shot. I don't know anything about the rest of that. It also sort of, I don't know, doesn't really make sense to me, but how do you make sense of this whole thing? And I read Alpha News. I read as many different perspectives as I can, as often as I can. I don't know what to make of that. And
probably need to be fleshed out a little bit more.
Basically what I tell people, in the days and weeks after a tragedy like this, whether I was involved or I'm on the outside, just take a breath. Let's see how this plays out. Like I said, I want to hear his motivation. I think it's somewhat helpful to the community to know, but maybe we'll hear the answer to that. Maybe we won't. I don't know.
How often, the part of and we've grappled with a lot of this in this hour, and again, I really appreciate the time, is the central question seems to be for a lot of people, how direct the line is between the rhetoric, which you say needs to be lowered, and these sorts of acts. And we tend to want to believe, depending on our political persuasion, that, yeah, there it is. See, there's proof, when often these stories are a hell of a lot more complicated than that. What's your view on that issue?
I never like the finger pointing that follows a tragedy. Let's take a breath. Let's mourn the good people who have passed. Let's think about the tragedy that happened and not get into that mode right away, whether it's on the right or the left, because it happens both ways. You can't say this guy did this because of who's president or who's governor or whatever. I mean, if he says it in the letter, okay, we can dissect that. But for us to make those judgments on our own, I think is destructive. I think it ramps things up rather than allowing us to reflect. And so what I'm saying is I think we need to figure out a way to have a different discourse, less of this. That doesn't mean all of this is going to go away. Like I said, in the 70s and 60s, we didn't have the internet. We had a lot of political violence. So I don't think anything's a cure-all, but I think we gotta stop that instant. The right blames the left blames the right. I don't see how that's healthy.
You're going to have to host a lot of dinners. I mean, you might have to host a dinner every night to get this accomplished.
Well, I'm trying to...
With new people.
Yeah.
Every time.
You know, Dan, you and I can confer on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I guess I'm asking for an invitation to one of these fancy dinners. Here's a few texts as we wrap things up here. You know this question. I think, well, I know the answer to it, but it's better that you answer it. Dan, how can that not be charged as a first-degree murder premeditated?
It will be. So in Minnesota, good question. Here's the answer. In Minnesota, the county attorney needs to go to a grand jury to get permission to bring a first-degree murder. I mean, typically that's how it works. And she has said she's going to do that, and she will. So that just takes a little time. Don't forget, the charges that were announced Monday were drafted over the weekend. I mean, you had assistant county attorneys and assistant U.S. attorneys working through the night.
Correct.
Putting these things together. We should applaud them and thank them because they all volunteered to come in and do that work over the weekend. I know that from having been there when that happened.
Speaking of
in other cases.
Speaking of conspiracy theories, Matt from Little Falls, the fear of the federal case is that Trump can pardon him. I'd say that's a good reason to prioritize state charges.
Yeah, that's an argument. Here's what's going to happen. Even if there's a federal prosecution and conviction, there will be a state prosecution and conviction. So who goes first doesn't necessarily matter. And I've heard other people, what's his name?
Matt from Little Falls.
I've heard people say what Matt said. I think put that behind you for the moment. Justice will be done here.
Let me find. Here's a couple other good ones. I'm neither Democrat nor. This is 612 guy, no name. I'm neither Democrat nor Republican. This is exactly the demeanor I'm looking for: sensible, thoughtful, intelligent. Right behind that, from 952, can he take over for the current Hennepin County DA? Yeah. Here's another one. Righty here, 612 guy. You're gonna get thrown out of the Democratic Party soon. We could use a lot more people with Andy's demeanor from both sides of the aisle. In all seriousness, I assume you appreciate that feedback.
I do, but what I would appreciate even more is if you like what I have to say, do it yourself. Find ways in your friend group, family group, to sort of take it to heart and pass it on, I guess. So, thank you for the compliment, but more important to me than the compliment would be if you did some of this yourself and found ways to amplify what it is I and others are saying.
Last item regarding the tragedy itself. There's usually at a time like this, what you hear a lot of is everything's changed. Nothing is going to ever be quite the same again, given the brutality and the evil of the assassination here, of the crime committed. A, do you agree with that? And B, what do we do with that? So what's next?
Yeah, I don't let myself agree with it because then we're hopeless, right? I think what we do is take hold of whatever is in our power. I have had those thoughts myself. I remember the Iranian Revolution, 1979. Oh my, how is the world ever going to be the same? There's so many times that I have felt that way, but there's always something to be done. And I think all of us have in our power, we live in a democracy, we live in a free country, to take actions that make things a little bit better. And I don't mean, it's not like, can't we all get along?
Right.
Let's figure out a way to coexist and to find a dialogue and a way to converse that isn't the way we're doing it now.
I really appreciate all the extra time. I know you got to go. I will say that perhaps next time, because I know you like sports, you like talking about sports, maybe we just completely, change the dynamics, lighten the thing up, and let you expound on. You used to play, didn't you were a high school football player?
And college.
And college, yeah.
So I'd love that. Not when we're obviously, this is a somber time and it needs to be, but I listen to you when I'm in the car.
Appreciate that.
And sometimes I yell at the radio, but
yeah, well.
I have lots of thoughts about sports, and, Rosen and I go back and forth on it. I'd like to do that. If people would find that interesting. I'm a little less measured when I talk about sports.
That's okay. That's perfect for us then. But quite frankly,
right now, I got to tell you, like a lot of other people, I'm still mourning, and I'm still thinking about how we can do this better. So again, I don't mean to suggest I have all the answers. I think we got to deal with this head on.
Appreciate it again. Thank you for a great hour.
Thanks.
Andy Luger, former U.S. attorney, kind enough to join us in studio. We'll be back in just a minute. I found that a very nourishing hour. I definitely appreciate the extended time that Andy Luger was able to give us today. I had some concern because he had texted last night saying, that hour you were hoping for, we're going to have to tighten it up. And then I said, after maybe kind of made a couple of snarky comments that he ignored, I said, well, what if we move it up a little bit? Let's move instead of 3:30, which was the original plan, 3:15. And as it turns out, it worked perfectly because we got basically a full hour with him. Lots of good texts coming in as well. I think a lot of people enjoyed it, and I'm hoping the promise we made to each other is that the next time we have him on, the subjects will be either sports related, because he does have a lot of stories he says to tell, including of his, he was a college football player in high school. And the other segment or two that he could fill very easily would be Joe Friedberg and Ron Rosenbaum stories. He said plenty of those as well.
That makes sense.
But obviously that's a different time. We're still in a mode where we're trying to digest this tragedy. And so all in good time, somewhere down the road, perhaps we can do that as well. Are you familiar with the Big Three?
The Big Three?
Yeah.
I'm familiar with a lot of Big Threes.
That is Ice Cube's basketball league.
Oh, yeah, that
Big
one.
Three.
Yes.
Did you see the news about the dismissal of Ice Cube's basketball league's courtside commentator, Rachel Demita?
I didn't.
I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. She apparently has been dismissed as courtside commentator, with the final straw, as it is described, being when Demita tweeted about Caitlin Clark's performance against the Liberty this past Saturday while she was working during a league game. I've never heard of her. She doesn't need me. She's got upwards of 279,000 followers on X and at least 1 million on Insta. Posted apparently 8 times that day, and every post involved Caitlin Clark. You can't do that.
While you're working?
Not while you're working.
No.
And according to some people, you shouldn't be doing it at all. It's because all of those
That's true.
were positive Caitlin Clark tweets, I think. Because I'm looking at a picture of her.
Well, that's too bad, because now she can't even land in the WNBA. If she's too positive about Caitlin Clark,
that's very true.
She can't even work there.
She's wearing, in the photo I see, this is from May, This is out of the New York Post. They posted, this is a photo of her in May in which she's wearing a Caitlin Clark Red Fever 22 jersey. Proudly. She seems to be wearing it very proudly. But I guess she's quoted at 3:32 p.m. She quote tweeted at 3:32 p.m. a clip of Clark's highlights from her return from injury in the win over the Liberty with the caption, "For those who questioned the hype." The Big Three scheduled list 4 games that day with a 3 p.m. Eastern time tip time. So by that account, she would have been tweeting these things out during the game. Now, what's worse? Rachel Demita tweeting out Caitlin Clark praise while she's supposed to be doing another job, or Stephen A. Smith being caught playing solitaire during an NBA Finals playoff game he was at. What's worse? What's more fireable?
I think the former, because I do think I'm going to give Stephen A. the benefit of the doubt that it was during a timeout playing solitaire. I don't even know.
Matt, in all seriousness, it's another sign of why we're doomed.
Yeah.
It really is. Is that worth more than, there's a shot of, it looks like Stephen A. playing solitaire. Should anybody really care?
No, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't.
No.
It should be at most a ... item in a notebook. It's not even, I don't even think it should be in a notebook, actually.
During breaks and timeouts at NBA playoff games,
yeah,
whether you're a fan or not, you're always if you're a working media member,
yeah.
I'm not saying you're playing solitaire, but you check your phone, you do some other stuff, then the game starts and you go on. I don't even know if Demita should be fired. First of all, I don't either. Unfortunately,
although it's called here the last straw, so maybe there's a history.
There's a lot we don't know, yes. Given I hadn't heard of her until 4 minutes ago. I'm probably not the authority on it, but it does speak, I think, to the interest, I guess, how the Big Three had captured her attention, that she's there working. Must not have been a very good game, the slate of games. She must have been bored there to have to jump on the WNBA highlights.
This story indicates there's a beef between the Big Three and Clark after Clark turned down the league's $10 million offer to play.
Which is stupid if there's
in the 3-on-3 league. If it's true, I don't even know. Ice Cube said on the Dan Patrick Show last June, they mean a year ago, I guess, that the deal would have been for 2 years at $5 million a season, and they had even discussed team ownership plus merchandise benefits. So Cube is mad that she said no? Is that the deal?
Maybe.
Is it that big of a deal?
And is it that surprising that she would say no to that?
No.
She doesn't need the 10 mil to do that.
Yeah.
If she doesn't want to. Also, the other thing I'm wondering, so that means there's a gig open with the Big Three?
There's potential.
My summers are pretty open.
That might be lucrative.
I could jump in there. I won't tweet about Caitlin Clark during the games.
Do you know the league?
I could learn it. I'm sure I know a lot of the players.
Yeah, you probably do. I've never heard of this individual. I've never heard of this controversy. And the firing seems excessive, but again, maybe there's this long
that's
history.
What it sounds like.
So it's like, well, wait a minute. Now you're supposed to be. But I think in the case of Stephen A., I think the video shows that the game is going on.
Oh, really?
I still don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I still don't think it's worth any time whatsoever. I understand Stephen A. is polarizing in some sense and brings a lot of this on lately. In fact, he has, because he thinks the whole league revolves around him on the basis of, well, they're saying I didn't do this. Well, I'm going to be around here a lot longer than you. It's like, just calm down.
Yeah, he's kind of lost me a little bit in the last few weeks.
Yes.
You know me, I'm a big Stephen A. guy.
I've been a relative defender myself. This is because he's a former Inkstein Wretch from way back.
Philadelphia Daily News, among others.
It's starting to turn a little bit for me. It is. I'm starting to get an unsettling feeling again. It's like, God, just calm.
$20 million
not everything revolves around. Yeah, that'll do it.
$20 million a year contract.
And
you start thinking
half the country predicting he's going to be the next president of the United States.
Exactly right.
Or that people that Democrats are asking him to run. Right? A bunch of them.
Everybody wants him to run.
Yeah.
Rachel Demita on Twitter about an hour ago put out a video. The title is Addressing the Rumors.
She did not.
Yeah, it's 5 minutes long. I don't want to get Rachel demeaned, but I'd prefer to do something else during the show today and not watch that video, so please don't make me.
No,
I don't have a ton of interest in watching her address the rumors.
Is she calling it a trumped-up charge? Is she saying, I'm not
watching?
Okay.
I just see that it says...
Maybe we can find a news story reacting to what Demita has to say. As in, will there be a hashtag free Rachel Demita?
I stand with Rachel Demita.
That's it. And do you notice who has not said a word about any of this?
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark.
Silence is deafening.
It's always deafening with her. She'll never stand tall and take important positions. Where is she? Nowhere to be found. Ben Gessling is being given the week off. Ben Gessling off this week. It might be one of the only times this entire calendar year that there probably isn't that much Vikings to get to. I mean, we could manufacture something easily.
We could fake it.
But we thought it might be a good week to give him some time to rest. Lavelle is scheduled for about 1 hour from now. Is he going to surprise us with an in-studio visit?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that myself.
He's due.
He is due, and it's one of my favorite things when he just blows in. But I don't think so. We'll see. We'll find out.
If Demita was only sending out Clark tweets during breaks in the action where she had no real duties...
Yeah.
Should she be let off the hook? I don't know.
Maybe.
Need to know a lot more about this controversy.
Well, and even I was just getting caught up on her role with the Big Three. She even said to some people in interviews that she's not your usual courtside reporter, whatever that means. So I don't know if that means she's not jumping in huddles during timeouts. If she's what her role is down there, I don't know. So maybe she had a bunch of time to just watch the game and doom scroll and throw out tweets.
You know, we had an hour, if you're just joining the show, with former U.S. Attorney Andy Luger. He joined about 3:15, left about 15, 20 minutes ago. And one of the things that was very interesting for me to digest from him was, much to the chagrin of some Trump supporters, I asked, I thought, a fairly obvious question. And people assume if you ask the question, you must assume there can be only one answer, which is really not what interviewing is about, but I digress. And that was regarding a lot of the stuff he's talking about regarding climate, the way we scream at each other, et cetera, anything goes. How much does he believe in the theory that, in that sense, from a discourse standpoint, everything changed with the ascension of Donald J. Trump? And he said, I don't think it's that simple. He didn't rule out that it has played a part. But what he said was, and it crystallized something in my mind almost immediately. He said, let's go back to W. Go back to when W was in office. Some of the stuff that was thrown out about him. Go back to Obama. Some of the stuff that was thrown out over and over about him. And what he also said off air that he said he would have been willing to talk about on air, we just simply ran out of time, was, well, in fact, I brought up Mitt Romney. And I said, to your point, how about some of the stuff that people became obsessed with when Mitt Romney ran for president, including, he strapped he was a dog killer.
Yep.
Right? And the
binders full of women.
Yeah, exactly.
I can remember it like yesterday.
Became literally the only things people were allowed to use to judge the candidacy of Mitt Romney, who, by the way, if it matters to people, it matters to lefties, was governor of one of the most liberal states in America, Massachusetts, right? And yeah. I don't remember anybody calling for his impeachment, if there is such a thing. And Luger's 100% right. I can remember with crystal clarity a text I received more than once when W was under siege for some stuff that he deserved to be under siege for. But it went well beyond that, and it was somebody arguing with me that you don't understand how much of a fascist this guy is. So, by the way, that term was being used then. That's before Trump. Fascist. And I said, what do you mean a fascist? Well, he's not going to, watch and see. If he loses, he's not going to leave office. I said, what do you mean he's not going to leave office? He's not going to leave. He's just going to declare himself, I'm going to be here for another 4 years. And I said, I tell you what. I remember, and this wouldn't have been text days. This would have been email days. I said, I tell you what. I want you to remember this conversation. And when W leaves office, as he will, I want you to email me back apologizing for this stupidity and this nonsense. And what it reminds us of is that a lot of this was already in place. It certainly was ramped up to another level. There's no question about that. But a lot of this was in place. Romney was turned into a right-wing zealot from the edges of the Republican Party, which he was not. And so if that already was in place, that sort of mentality, and there was an us versus them then. Now, it's gotten a lot worse, but you could say the seeds were sown a while ago, and I thought it was one of the smartest points that Andy Luger made to us, that this has been going on for even before Trump came aboard. I can still remember it. I don't think, and by the way, I don't think he ever emailed me back. Oh, you're right. I guess he did leave office on
You win
time.
some, you lose some.
Yeah, I took a shot. I wasn't sure, but I thought it might be possible. Texts now via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686. This is Jake from Granite Falls asking for meat sauce. What is iHeart's policy for scrolling/posting on social media? We wouldn't want sauce to get the Demeter treatment. I don't think there'd be any concern about that, would there, here?
No.
There's a
and he's already been let go once and came back years ago.
Oh, that's true.
So he's back from the dead.
Yeah, you're right. That's a very good point. Guardsy, this is a callback, 702 guy. Would you pay homage to those who came before you? If you, for example, you talked about maybe that.
If I got the big three job,
yeah. Would you be respectful?
Yeah, I think I would have to. Maybe not as, I don't think they're as obsessed with it as the WNBA. It's a league that hasn't been around as long as the Dub. So it wouldn't be that hard to remember those that came before me. I could do it.
One of the other interesting things I thought Andy said was that when he's in the car, he listens to the show. Do you think he's got the iHeart?
We're one of the presets.
App?
Yeah, I bet we're one of the presets. KFAN, Dan Barrero podcast.
Yeah, you might be right. I'm worried he doesn't have the app. I'm going to text him about the app.
Send him a link to the App Store.
Send him a link.
KFAN.com/listen.
The point I'm trying to make is he can listen to it not just when he's in the car. That's all I'm trying to say. Yeah, like you need another job, Guardsy. LOL. What if she was tweeting during timeouts? I asked this already, didn't I? Timeouts or intermissions?
Yep.
Don't know. A great guest with Andy, Dan. I hear you always say that you enjoyed the conversation. You hope the listeners did too. Well, I certainly did. You always seem to have a good hunch on what your listeners will enjoy. Andy was a great guest. Well, you hope to get the hunch. And by the way, you don't always get it right, but you do play the hunches. And I've said this before. I don't want to go too far down the road here on this, but it's just true. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there's another so-called sports station in America that would have allowed any of us, not just me, any of us, go down the different roads that we've all been allowed to. And it's because you do that over and over again, you're allowed to do it, that then there's a chance people get used to it. Right? And then they go, oh, okay, well, this is somebody different. This might be pretty good, right? If you don't ever have that chance, well, wait a minute. Vikings, what about the quarterback situation? Fortunately, we've outgrown most of that, I think, at this point. But that's a big part of it. It goes back to trying to nurture that whole concept of, as we like to say in the business, leaving the toy department. The guy needs to run for office, finally someone with some sanity. I think the ship has sailed. I don't think he's... Andy, what do we say? I think he's 66. I think he's 3.5 years younger than me, I believe.
Okay.
And he's saying, we want to get the youngsters in. We all do, right? In all seriousness, that's what we're all clamoring for, so that the people who are running the country aren't 80 to 85 years old, right? But we seem... is it not fair to say that we say we want different stuff, but we tend to sort of navigate back to familiar names, familiar last names, right? That's what we tend to do.
That's been the trend here recently, yeah. Or off of their tree.
Correct.
Right? That's been the trend.
I mean, a Bush, a Clinton, Obama, Trump, Biden, for how many decades are we going back when they're the only ones?
Jeb ran the first time Trump won.
Remember that?
Yes.
Jeb was supposed to be the guy.
He was supposed to be the guy.
Remember, he was the selected one, the chosen one, and didn't go anywhere.
Trump just dealt with him on one debate stage, and that was it. It was done. He was toast.
You're probably right about that. Let me get to a couple of other very controversial texts. Dan, Caitlin this is James and Fancato, way too smart to get involved in that controversy. She knows and controls her own image. Just like Taylor Swift, her name is her brand, and she will not do anything to damage it. Apparently, Caitlin believes in shut up and dribble, which might be her best choice. That's from Bookseller guy as well. Well, I think you and I agree that the way in year 2 in the WNBA that Clark is speaking is by playing or trying to get to another level on the basketball court that basically blows away the competition, right? It's her way of if you, I don't know if it's bleep you. It comes off sometimes as
it's feeling that way to me.
More and more like bleep you.
Yeah.
That's what, rather than at a press conference, I'm going off on this thing. I've tried to do the right thing. I measured for every word I do or don't say over and over again to the degree that no one else has to deal with in the entire sports culture. I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. So stop telling me what I need to do. I wouldn't mind it if she did it.
We might get there.
And she might get there. But right now it's, okay, I won't do it that way. I'm just going to be even more and more dominant and obnoxious, if you want to say it, to the court, on the court, looking at the other team's bench, et cetera, et cetera.
And I'll be honest, I love it. Because if I were her, I'm impressed. Now, she's always been demonstrative on the court.
She
right?
has, yeah.
Which I don't think she should apologize for. There's a lot of there's a lot of emotional players that, that's part of their game. And I think that's part of what brings people into Caitlin Clark is she plays with that emotion and that passion and gets the crowd going and things like that. So, but I'm impressed that at least in terms of the bleep you, like telling J.C. Sheldon, I'll do whatever the bleep I want. In one of the exchanges, I kind of get the exchanges mixed up. And then when she hits the dagger 3, well defended by Sheldon, by the way. And to compare it, gives her the Luca to Rudy, essentially, from Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. I love it all. And I don't blame her for doing it because going back to last year, we talked about when is she going to get sick of this? And I'm sure she was sick of it then, but she, for whatever the reason, played the game that they wanted her to play. And I do think now it's over. I think all bets are off.
What is the daily Durantula update? Anything? Did the needle move in one direction or another today?
I don't think it has. And I'll be honest, usually my barometer for this was whatever Shams said on the McAfee show because he was basically on every day for a while there with the Durant update or on the Inside or the ESPN pregame show. I have not seen anything. It seems like it's gone pretty quiet on that front. And so what he said yesterday was everybody's a piece or two away, right, was his information. The teams that are interested in Durant.
Including us?
Yes. He believes are 1 or 2 pieces away, I think, is what we read in the top 5 at 5.
How many pieces we got to throw in?
Well, there's that. We still don't know for sure what we've thrown in.
We don't. We're not. And we also don't. Have we changed the story? The most recent story was he didn't want us. So has that changed again now since?
I think people have. But even when that was the story, I think a lot of people understood, well, he doesn't get to just decide.
No, but then we're back to do we want him or not? No, actually, the more important question is do the Wolves want him or not? And so if the Wolves are still offering stuff, and of course we don't know that they are, but if they're still offering stuff, that would seem to indicate that we have already vetted that issue and we're not scared of it, right? One of the reports I saw, this doesn't even make sense, it wasn't either Dillingham or Shannon. It was both.
Well, that's absurd.
It was Rudy It was DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
It was both young players and the 17th pick. And then come on, let's not get ridiculous here.
No, I know.
I mean, where are you going to draw the line on that?
Yeah. I'm going to be, like I've said it the entire time, I'm going to be fascinated to find out what the final package is from whoever wins it, because there's so many tentacles besides just that he's Kevin Durant and he's one of the top 15, 20 players of all time, maybe top 10 offensive players the game's ever seen. But he is 37. He does have some injuries. His teams haven't been very good. He's been a coach killer. He can be disinterested, like you say. So I can talk myself kind of in and out of it, but
Easily,
I know
yes.
I don't want to give that much
No, that's definitely too much.
for a risk of... I could see it if Anthony Edwards was also 33 or 34, and all these guys were Rudy's age.
Yeah.
You go, we got to do something now. This is our last chance. But I do still, even though it's risky to do this, I still do believe in windows, even if it's risky to assume when one's open or closed.
We quoted during the Andy Luger segments an Alpha News report regarding details on the letter that was addressed apparently to the FBI that was found in the purchased Buick, right? Written by the alleged perpetrator in last weekend's assassination. And by the way, it's Belter, right? I've called him Bolter and Belter. It's Belter. Isn't the O silent?
I think it's Belter.
I think it's Belter.
Yeah.
So now StarTribune.com has a story on this same subject. I'll read you a couple of sentences from it. In a rambling conspiratorial letter addressed to the FBI, alleged assassin Vance Belter claimed Governor Tim Walz instructed him to kill U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar so that Walz could run for the U.S. Senate. That's more detail than the Alpha folks had, according to two people familiar with the contents of the letter. The letter is the clearest evidence yet of Belter's mindset after the targeted violence against Minnesota politicians last week. It is incoherent, 1.5 pages long, confusing, and hard to read, according to two people familiar with the letter's contents. It includes Belter alleging he had been trained by the U.S. military off the books and that Walz, who is not running for Senate, had asked him to kill Klobuchar and others. There's a lot of, they go to the proper authorities. Everybody's saying no comment, including via the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. A Walz spokesman saying this tragedy continues to be deeply disturbing for all Minnesotans. Klobuchar in a statement today, Belter's a very dangerous man. I'm deeply grateful that law enforcement got him behind bars before he killed other people. She was not the only other politician named. The letter included a seeming reference to U.S. Senator Tina Smith. Federal prosecutors allege the letter also contained Belter's confession that he carried out the shootings that killed State Rep Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark and injured Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. And I'm trying to see if there's anything. Yeah, that's it for now. So that's because when I read the Alpha News report, I thought it was what he was going to say. I'm mad at Governor Walz,
right,
therefore I'm taking out my anger on these other Democrats. This tells a very different story than that, and even more, well, none of it's coherent, but an even more frightening story on several levels, not the least of which, there's always a discussion, and we got into this discussion about, insanity plea, and that it was Andy Luger's opinion that there's already too much known for that to be a direction that's going to be very successful. One of the questions I didn't get to with Andy Luger that I wanted to was, in his experience, because I tend to believe as an outsider, as somebody who's not, obviously involved in any of these cases, that often with individuals like this, it's a combo platter, ultimately, of being radicalized by either somebody else or by himself and some level of mental illness. Not insanity. I'm not saying insanity, but that there almost has to be a combination. And if he's suggesting he's got voices that say to him that Governor Walz is telling him to take out Senator Klobuchar, doesn't that sound like someone who is disturbed that there are some issues there? And so it ends up being the perfect storm of whatever the politics, wherever that enters into it, however you've been radicalized about they're the other and I got to take them out, but also then that part of the reason you're capable or vulnerable to doing something like this and carrying this stuff out and even being convinced of this stuff is you've got a significant mental issue as well, right? I think there's always, well, I shouldn't say always, but a lot of times it's a combo platter. It's a complicated stew that leaves people in position where they become capable of this kind of heinous crime and behavior.
I mean, I think that's really the only path, right?
Yeah.
That it is that messed up in your brain and in your head that you can get to those points. That is, like you say, very different. We talked about the alpha thing before the show.
Yes.
And I read that story kind of while you were talking with Mr. Luger. And that is, I got to be honest, completely different than what I thought it was going to be when you read it and says he blames other walls,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So when I read the couple of paragraphs where that's like a whole made up fantasy crazy story that in a weird way doesn't even feel connected to the actual shootings that took place.
Correct.
You know?
Yes, exactly right.
Like it's almost
like you're making it up as you go along. And it does, to Senator Klobuchar's point, the statement she sent out, it does leave you with the impression that anything might have gone with this guy.
Right.
You know, that thank God they got to him when they did. There was enough already carnage and tragedy, but that this person seems as if they were hell-bent on pursuing whatever that path is, no matter the price. And it goes back to the statement. Daddy went to war last night. When you feel like you're in a war footing, then you say, I got to do what I've got to do, right? I got to do what I got to do. So, in any case, 952.
Did you see the story, by the way, also about the preppers? That's what he and his wife have been called. That they apparently at their house or in some places they did have.
Oh yes, I didn't read it.
Like go bags essentially and money and plans for if something did go down, where you should go, what you should do. But also she, when they talked to her, was not really close to even the area that they had possibly discussed meeting up if something had ever gone down. So with every revelation, I leave a little bit more confused and hope that these dots are going to be connected at some point for all of us.
Texter says he didn't say voices. He said Tim Walz told him. Yes, I'm aware of that. I'm going to go out on a precarious limb, and suggest that there's a good chance that Tim Walz didn't tell him what he is now claiming in that particular letter. And that might mean voices. That might mean projecting. That might mean sort of making stuff up. One more before we get to a couple more maybe before we get to top 5. Hey, Barrera, all this talk about different cases, you're a head case. Talk about sports. Unless you lack the knowledge, bum. I don't understand. So what's he mad at? What specifically? Let's see what area code that is. 630. Isn't that Chicago area?
You tell me.
630. That sounds like it might be. I could be off. You're a head case.
Western suburbs. That's your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's scary.
Aurora, Naperville, Wheaton, Elmhurst.
I think that's Coach Barrero's number. No, I'm kidding. I don't think that's her. Man. Oh, in fact, here's another bum. I think that do people have burner accounts? Because there's a 630 and a 507 that basically say the same thing. So how does that work? Can people disguise their area codes? I'm sure there's a million ways to get around it, because the words are almost identical. The 507 is very different than 630.
Maybe there's like a BarreroIsABum.com where you can copy and paste group text messages that everybody can send in mass at the same time to the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686. You gotta
be trying really hard if you're going to try to go with, how do we know Walz didn't tell him? You got to be trying really hard to somehow blame this particular issue on the governor. And by the way, have not been shy about criticizing this particular governor, in some cases also for his own rhetoric. Top 5 will include
border battle at Target Field this weekend. The Pacers force Game 7. And if you were at Wrigley today, Dan, would it have been emotional for you? Details next.
I love the variety of guests, but you still can't get a Wild player on, though. Perhaps someday. Thank you, folks.